Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Ultimate Endgame Issue 2, written by Dennis Camp, with art by Terry Dodson, Rachel Dodson and Jonas Scarf, with colours by Terry Dodson and Edgar Delgado and letters by Corey Petit. The life and times of Immortus are fully explored this issue as the crazed old man Immortus, who without a doubt is Tony Stark's father Howard Stark, regales Tony, Doom, Spider-Man and America Chavez with the thousands of years he's existed inside the dome, telling them that he was consumed by a million undone suns, or when the Maker slowly let go of what made him human and became some strange tree-like being. Luckily, Immortus is, like his name alludes to, immortal, and he is constantly reborn into this hellscape, which has made him just a little bit loopy. Tony wants him to start from the beginning, something Immortus, who remembers being Howard Stark and what he saw under Kang the Conqueror's mask, and what he saw scared him so much that he tries to divert attention away from that he might actually have a coherent thought, and again starts rambling and talking about all of the different stuff like the Forever War and how taking things out of context and out of order is how the Forever War works. It rejects attempts to connect cause and effect. I really do like when comics swing for the fences with timeline fuckery, alternate dimensions and stuff like that. It's not just a simple, this person goes over into this timeline and things are different. There's like a more sci-fi element to that in Camp's writing here, where we see stuff like at the start here with the million undone suns, which thanks to the sped up time are constantly dying and being reborn, and just stuff like that is just so weird and wonderful, and just stuff that like comics thrive on. Howard wanting to face all of this down, but not actually face the real reality of what his son, or maybe even he, becomes through Kang is so interesting and compelling, especially with Tony being there and just wanting his father to make sense so he can both help him and help defeat the Maker. It's great drama, but then there's also the constant thing hanging over the head of this entire Ultimate Endgame finale thing, which is, why wasn't this done a bit sooner, since we are just going to barrel through all of this really great character work so quickly? We have 2 issues left, plus a special, and we don't really know what the Ultimate Universe is going to be like on the other side. I don't think it'll be any of this sort of stuff, which is a real shame. Tony wants his father to explain what he meant by the Maker was in the city, and so Howard tells him that the Maker became something more than human, absorbing the entire city and coating every atom in his being, releasing bursts of microplastics, which Howard called Maker Spores, which enter a person and remodel them into one of his children, who then received the Maker Mind, becoming one of Maker's mind-controlled children robots. The Ultimates are glad they kept their masks on if that's the case, and Tony realizes that Howard was the one who extended the Darwin bubble around Latveria, and Howard knows that it was the only workable strategy, but it is just delaying the inevitable. This is where the heroes learn something quite terrible has happened, as when Howard extended the field, he had to buy the heroes more time, so he reversed the field, meaning instead of years passing inside the bubble while only minutes pass outside, it's reversed. So while being inside the bubble for only a few minutes, a whole month has passed outside in the real world, and Iron Lad and the others have disappeared into the bubble and no one knows what happened to them. So I kind of feel this was just a little bit of a cop-out, so it doesn't disrupt any of the other Ultimate books or like what's going on in the Ultimates or something, since it was already established that time in the bubble passes faster. Minutes inside the bubble are equal to hours and thousands of years, literal years inside the bubble. A couple of minutes pass outside, it's thousands of years inside. So if that was reversed, it'd be the same basically. Minutes would equal out to years, but now all of a sudden it's just months. I get why it was done. I understand they probably had to kind of change little things here and there just to make it, make sense with some of the books, but it just breaks the already established rules of the bubble. Outside the bubble, a big quarantine zone has been put up around Latveria, with many of the Latverians actually evacuating their home nation. However, some stayed behind, and because of it, they have become infected with something which glazes over their eyes, makes them vomit up blood on each other. So I think that might be the microplastics, and maybe because they aren't connected to the Maker since the bubble is in place, maybe they just infect people and just kind of turn them into, I don't know, zombie-like people or something. It was never really explained exactly what that is, but something definitely got out, something snuck out just in that fraction of a second, and I'm intrigued to see what that actually is. On top of that, we also get a brief catch-up with Danny Rand and the reborn Shen Kui, whose followers are literally lighting themselves on fire as a form of radical non-violent resistance, which is something we've actually seen many times in real life. Danny getting little pieces throughout these books makes me think there's going to be some sort of third act pull with him and the Iron Fist. Like, they're going to come in and there'll be like the, I don't know, like Deus Ex Machina thing that will save everything somehow. I don't know why we keep getting little cuts to this unless there was something in store for these characters. But again, it's all this stuff that would have been great to have been set up so early on the book so that when it comes here, they're like pre-established characters. We're like just meeting these characters in just the last couple of issues and then the book's over. So it's like, oh, we can't really form any sort of emotional attachment or emotional investment into these characters. Out in Detroit, the anti-war machine Armor and Vision have almost wiped out all of Hand, and alongside the Detroit war machine, more have sprung up across the country. This is where the book takes a surprising turn as we pick up in Wakanda, where Killmonger wants Wakanda to join the forces of the Ultimates to do battle against the Maker, but King T'Challa doesn't want to get involved with the rest of the world's squabbles. But that doesn't mean he doesn't want to stop the Maker. Instead, he gives Eric an interesting mission, wanting to send only him over to Latveria, where he will find the Maker and kill him. I was really surprised to see the Black Panther characters making such a big appearance in this book, since being some big crossover end of the line event, the first issue was largely just the Ultimates and no real hanger-ons from like Wolverine or the X-Men or any of the other books that are going on. So this is kind of like a big deal. This is, these Black Panther characters being written by a different writer. And I think it's great that T'Challa and Killmonger are getting to be part of the big event and embroiled in the Maker plot and done in such a way that's interesting. Like, Eric is sent to kill the Maker, not because it's the right thing to do, but so their continent can be freed and Wakanda can just go back to being more isolationist. Quite like that. I'd like to explore more of that. We can't because the Black Panther book is finished now. It would have been cool to explore the ramifications of that, they will help, but they'll only help their own. And like the ramifications that would bring with the Black Panther having to clash with the Ultimates and everything. And, you could do so many cool stories with that, but we're just not getting any of that. Back in the bubble, Immortus shows the heroes his invincible Iron Army, which he modeled on his own mind, which was a mistake since the robots are all ego-driven and just hack their own brains to simulate altered states. We get more hints at the weird and crazed world Immortus lives in as he reveals that he actually tried to start an economy in the bubble with Stark bucks, but they are only usable in the gift shop, and the gift shop is always closed for remodeling, which is really quite funny. You can't spend the money you own. And it's at this point everything is quite confusing, and like that's the point, since Immortus is jumping around in his life, he's kind of scatterbrained, and that makes sense. And I like that they actually work that into the story, where later on Death's Head says he thinks in fourth dimensions, so he's going to be a bit crazy and human minds can't really comprehend that. So like what we're seeing is him doing his best to try and like streamline it so we can understand it. I thought that was quite an interesting take on like time travel and how that sort of works. But on top of that, like the story is not progressing as much as it should be. This is, the Ultimates' final stand against the Maker. They need to be heading for the Maker, not spending an entire issue here just reliving things that Immortus has done. They're like, yeah, sure, there's plot pertinent information in that, but you can like get through that and then be like, okay, we need to move on. We can't just stay with Immortus this entire time and learn about, the undone sons and, how he fought the children with his army of Deathlocks and Death's Heads and stuff like that. We got to move on the story. America asks the obvious question, where are they? And Immortus tells her that they are in Limbo, which is comprised of small moments of stolen time from throughout the timeline. How it shows off the Immortus engine he built Limbo from and what is powering it all, and how it reveals the Maker cannot follow them into Limbo and doesn't really know why, only that while the Maker fixes himself up and can change himself, there are some holes that can never be filled or fixed, something Doom knows all about, and something we actually saw go through with Doom, where him trying to fix that hole of the Fantastic Four and him realizing he doesn't need to fix that. Tony tries to focus his father by showing him the origin box in his suit, knowing that he gave it to him, but again, Immortus can't seem to remember that or just doesn't really want to, with Death's Head waving it away again as like the fourth dimensions. He has to think of just kind of driving him a bit insane, but it's kind of obvious that he knows what's going on. He's just kind of playing it off because he doesn't want to have to confront his own life, his own time. As the Ultimates learn they cannot leave Limbo or the bubble without risking the release of the Maker, Killmonger continues his journey towards Latveria, killing his way through Maker loyalist territories until he arrives in Latveria. And all of this would have been a great tie-in, just Killmonger on the road, killing his way through all of these things, these monsters, Maker's people, hand members, all these different factions, just to get to Latveria. That would have been a really, really cool book. I do like that instead of doing the traditional dialogue for Killmonger's adventure, Camp opts to use messages from the Ultimates network instead, as they are kind of tracking him through all this carnage he is wroughting through these different territories, and they're trying to figure out what he's doing, why he's doing it, why he's going here, why he's doing this, and eventually they learn, he's going to Latveria to, help out the Ultimates. I quite like that. It gives normal people a bit of a stake in the story, and it's great use of the Ultimates network concept as well. In the bubble, the children get inside Limbo, and Immortus realizes that the Ultimates unwittingly led them inside. The Maker, who talks to the Ultimates through his creations, tells the heroes he's waited 2,000 years to find Limbo, and specifically its Immortus engine. Immortus and the Ultimates defend the engine from the children, and during the fight, the Maker confronts Doom, happy to see his face. So there's a part here which makes me kind of suspicious of Doom, since we get a close-up of Doom's eye, which is blue. So that's kind of a big hint that something fucky is going on here, as we've seen Doom's eyes before. There's been close-ups of his eyes before, and they're like a orangey brownish type of color. Normally I'd just say, it's a coloring error. They can happen all the time. But it's got a precedence here in Fantastic Four comics, as I believe Maker is either controlling Doom or spying on the team through his eyes, just like he did with Valeria in the Hickman Fantastic Four, I do believe. It's either the Hickman or the Millar run. I'm pretty sure it was the Hickman run. If this turns out to be the case, and that's just one heck of a pull from Camp, and it's a great mirroring of just how much Maker is more like Doom than Reed ever was. And I kind of like the idea that Doom is kind of like an unwitting traitor, or maybe he does know, maybe he is very well aware of what the Maker is doing to him and he just can't do anything against it, or maybe he does. Maybe he just is sick of like the Ultimates and wants to change or something. I'm intrigued to see what like the end game, funnily enough, is for that. As the fight continues, the Immortus engine teleports away to safety, although one engine still exists, one in Iron Lad's suit. So in order to protect the timeline from the Maker, Immortus blasts it with a powerful energy blast, intending on destroying it and his son so they don't fall into the hands of the Maker. Things get really wild here, as while Iron Lad is attacked by his father, the suit reacts and blows Immortus's skin completely off his face, basically rips all of Immortus's face clean off. Immortus being killed, or at very least horribly scarred and deformed, wasn't something I bet on. I kind of figured Immortus would maybe snap back to like his normal, sanity, and maybe he remembers Tony and has a heroic sacrifice to get the heroes to where they need to be in the next issue. Now I feel like this is maybe the birth of the villainous Immortus, and I do wish we had more of an emotional stake in Tony and Howard's story here. Like, this should be a layup. The lost boy reunites with his father, and then they try and hash out their differences while also saving the world. But none of that is here, and in just a few issues it won't matter. Like, it's just barreling through all of this just to get to that ending. As Howard lay there dying, he remembers Tony, knowing he is the conqueror and destroyer. And I said this before, and I've said this before in past issues, but I think this whole thing, because this has been brought back countless times, Howard seeing who is under the Kang mask, and it's got to be a red herring. It can't just be Tony. I theorize it might be Howard himself, and this could be him being set on the path to become Immortus, who then becomes Kang, and you've got all of that sort of stuff maybe working in here, in which case that would be really interesting, but it all just feels so obvious at the moment as well. I don't think it's going to be Tony, and if it is, that's going to be a little bit disappointing, because it's like, yeah, that's kind of obvious. America uses her powers to evacuate the team along with a random Deathlock cyborg, and as the team escape, Death's head is killed by the children, who Maker uses to tell the dying Immortus that he is going to keep Howard alive for eternity now, and never stop torturing him with his own stolen time. Unfortunately, what Maker fails to realize is that without the Immortus engine sustaining Limbo, it no longer is powered by stolen time, but rather borrowed time, which begins ripping itself apart because it is borrowed. It is being taken back by what it is owned by. That's kind of a neat little dead man switch for the Limbo. It pulls itself apart once the Immortus engine is gone, since it's now on borrowed time. That's an interesting concept. I quite like that. It's also interesting that Maker didn't actually see that happening. He never foresaw that happening, and being a smart guy, you think he would. I think he'd realize how that would work and everything. I mean, I can understand how that works. So surely one of the smartest people in the Marvel universe would be able to sort that out. Immortus and the dying Death's head fade from existence as the Ultimates find themselves out in the city again, and we finally get a really wild cliffhanger, as it's revealed that yes, the Maker is in contact with Doom, and actually who appears before him and only him. Only Doom can see him, so I love that this validates a lot of the theories I had about Doom being, a secret spy, an unknowing spy, some sort of traitor to the team. Camp did a good job alluding to it, but like a lot of things in this book, we needed more time for this. We needed more time, more hints at it, especially as the book went on, because we kind of got front-loaded with hints. A lot of the stuff, especially in those early Doom-centric issues, where all of this stuff is sort of built on, and then we didn't really get anything for 11 issues. And we saw what Maker was doing to Doom with his brain, taking parts out, putting things in. So there is, a precedence for him being under the control of the Maker, or the Maker being able to spy on the Ultimates. But we just needed more of it. We needed it to be alluded to a little bit more throughout the issues so it would be remembered, because I guarantee you there's going to be people out there who don't remember the eye color thing, or that he had his mind fucked with and, bits taken out and whatnot. I guarantee you there are people that don't remember that because it was so long ago. All these things are starting to compound now, and I just can't see how we will have enough time to fully explore all these awesome story arcs, which is ironic because the story is ultimately about having time and time travel and not having enough time to live and do things. And I find that interesting, but it just feels like we're going at this too fast and we're just barreling towards that end point. Ultimate Endgame issue 2, while filled with some really fascinating explorations into stuff like time travel, stolen time, borrowed time, I just can't help but feel that we were kind of getting these stories explored a little too late and not to their fullest extent. All the stuff we got with Tony and Immortus, his father Howard Stark, while great, it felt like just little bits of a bigger story we're never gonna get, because this book finishes in 2 issues and then we get a special. So we're not really getting the full story and not getting the full extent of what these stories could be. And because of that, I feel like I have no stake in these people's lives and what they are doing. I should have an emotional stake in Tony and Howard's reconnection, but I'm just not getting that here in this issue. There was some really fun stuff in the book though. I really like all of the stuff with Doom and what they are doing with Doom in this book, and how there's hints that maybe he is sort of a traitor to the team. Some really interesting stuff going on there, but it's just, are we ever going to get a full extent to these stories? Probably not, which sucks. I'm going to give this issue a 5 out of 10.